So we have been learning some questions that have been good, that are good for us to ask when we are in the process of making decisions. And I think they've been really good. I hope that they have been helpful for you. I hope that you have been able to be reflective enough. I hope, as John said earlier on in the series, I hope that you've been able to be honest with yourself enough to really, truly consider these questions. And today's question, which I'll get to in a minute, makes me think of another question, a different question that I used to ask myself when I was younger. And maybe not in exactly these words, but if I had to guess, you probably have asked yourself something like this before. And that is the question, is there anything wrong with this? Right? I mean, maybe perhaps you remember childhood differently than me. But when you're young, the answer to this question almost always seems to be no, right? And we kind of even say it that way. Like, let's say your childhood family home sits on a blind curve in the middle of nowhere where, people love to go around this curve just way too fast. And so you and your neighbor decide that it would be fun to take sticks and trash and just put it out in the middle of the road and go and hide and watch the cars come whipping around the corner and just see what they do. Let's just watch and see what happens, right? Is there anything wrong with this? Nope, seems totally fine to me. At least that's what she said. So we were just like, okay, cool, let's go for it. Let's do it. Or let's say, completely hypothetically, of course, you and your brother enjoy playing golf, and you live out in the country, and it's just, cornfields, open fields on 3 of the 4 sides of your property. You chip golf balls and crab apples all the time, and nobody ever got hurt, at least not too bad. And so you think, you know what, we should get out our driver. Let's do that, right? I mean, normally we just hit our pitching wedges, 9 irons, but let's get out the driver. That should be fun. And I mean, again, this should be totally fine, no big deal. If you hit the ball this way, it's like just cornfields for as far as you can see. There's a really long cornfield. This is a hypothetical story. This didn't actually happen, but there's a really long cornfield and then a little row of trees and another cornfield after that. And sure, on the other side of that, there's a cemetery, but the people that live there don't mind. So, that was good. You got that. Okay. Or you can hit the ball this way, and it's 300 plus yards of just tall grass and unused farmland until you get to the next house on the street. You can even hit the ball this direction. If you hit the ball back this way, it's 50 yards of tall grass, a creek, that's what we called it, and then just a half mile of cornfields. Now, they're not always all corn. Beans, crop rotation, it's a big deal, so we do those things. But anyway, it's just fields for as far as you can see. Or, go with me on this, or you can hit the ball this way, toward the street. It's 30, 40 yards in front of you. I mean, what are the chances of hitting a car speeding by anyways, right? That's not going to happen, so this should be totally fine. Is there anything wrong with this? Anything wrong with this idea? We're going to go this direction. Anything wrong with that? Nope, I can't think of anything. I hear a yes. I wish you had been there that day. It looks totally fine to me. I can't think of a single good reason why we shouldn't do this. Now, again, this is a totally hypothetical story. My brother and I did not find out that when you hit a golf ball, or when you hit a truck moving at 30 miles per hour with a golf ball moving 150 miles per hour, that it sounds like someone shot at you and it hit the side of your truck. We also did not find out that the person driving that truck would slam on their brakes in shock and then speed away furiously as if they were driving through a war zone. I have no idea if that's what would happen. It seems possible that something like that might happen, but again, completely made up story just for this message today. I mean, as kids, right, we do this thing where we flirt with the line between good and bad. The line between probably fine and impending disaster. right? There's no in between. We just stand right on that line. It's kind of a human nature thing to do as children. I mean, as adults, we completely stop doing things like that. Just cold turkey one day. We don't make decisions like that anymore. We don't live right next to that line anymore. We just give that kind of stuff up, right? I mean, it's not like when we're driving down the highway, we look at the posted speed limit and then calculate in our heads how much we can break the law without having an encounter with the law. And if you're not particularly good at math, this is extra risky. We don't do things like that, right? It's not like we look at our bank account and we say, well, it's ramen for dinner tonight. And then tomorrow, I could get one more pair of shoes. Like one more swipe of the credit card won't hurt, right? I mean, the math really doesn't add up at all, but it'll be just fine. The truth is, we do those kinds of things, don't we? We think that we have matured so much, that we have grown out of making the kinds of decisions that put us right on the verge of irresponsibility, disaster, embarrassment, addictive behaviors. But we still do it. We think, sure, I might be close. I'm not quite over the line. And what fuels this decision to flirt with disaster is a common and simple but very flawed assumption. And that assumption is, if it's not wrong, it's all right. If it's not illegal, then it's permissible. If it's not immoral, then it's acceptable. And if it's not over the line, then it must be fine. Now, as an older brother, as an older sister, as a parent, I'm guessing that you don't set the bar this low for the people that you love and the people that you are responsible for, right? I mean, this is a how low can I go, how bad can I possibly be without being too bad type of mentality. And you don't set the bar that low for people that you care about. But if you have ever wondered, how far over the line can I go without getting caught? If you've ever wondered, how unethical or insensitive can I be without creating results that I just really don't want to have to deal with? If you've ever wondered, how long can I neglect my family, my finances, or my health before I really have to deal with it? If you've ever wondered, how much can I indulge in addictive behavior before I get hooked? Then chances are you probably already know how that turns out. And this all stems from asking ourselves the wrong question. Is there anything wrong with this? Right? And that question often leads to the question, how did I get myself into this? Right? How on earth did I get myself into this situation? And by the time you ask that question, asking yourself if there's anything wrong with this has already produced an undesirable outcome, and you are wishing that you had asked yourself a better question to start this process. Because setting our limits, establishing our moral and ethical standards right on the line between good and bad, right and wrong, legal and illegal, is a dangerous and it is a foolish way to live. Again, my guess is you probably already know that. Because when we see, Because when we see our loved ones, right? You know this because when we see our loved ones snuggled up close to the lines, to those types of lines, right? The line between good and bad, and we see their life on a trajectory that seems to be headed for certain destruction, we don't sit back and say, well, there's technically nothing illegal about what they're doing. There's technically nothing wrong. It's not immoral per se. We don't do stuff like that because we know almost instinctually that there is a better question to ask. And that is our fourth question, a question that we will refer to as the maturity question. And that is the question, is it wise for me to do? Right? Again, this passage, Proverbs 27:12. You've heard this at different points throughout this series. The prudent see danger and they take refuge, Prudent people are wise people because they understand that one thing leads to another isn't just a catchy figure of speech. It's true. One thing really does lead to another. And they pause and they make their decisions with this in mind. The prudent, they see danger and they take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. And whether they know what the penalty is or not, and let's face it, right, let's be honest, a lot of times we know that there could or will be a penalty. A lot of times we even know what the penalty will be for certain decisions, but we make them anyway. And you don't really need me to tell you that that's unwise, right? So when you're making a decision, stop and ask yourself, what is the wise thing to do? What is the wise thing to do? The option that you're considering may not be illegal. It might be very much legal. It might be acceptable. It might be permissible. The option that you're considering might even be the industry standard. More than just acceptable, it might be what's expected of you. It may not exactly be immoral, but is it wise? Is it wise, right? See, mature people understand that a decision can be both not wrong and unwise all at the same time. And sadly, many people do not want to hear that. I mean, if it's not wrong for me to do it, then who are you to tell me that I shouldn't do it, right? Well, first of all, saying that you can't do something and that something is unwise are also not the same thing. We can continue to believe that if something can be done, then it must be okay to do if we want. We can continue to think that if we want to, and we can continue to pay the penalty as a result. But wise people understand that just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Something can be not wrong and not wise at the same time. And this is why asking, is it wise for me to do, is better than asking, is there anything wrong with this? They are not the same question. In your mind, you might be thinking, isn't that the same thing? They are not the same question, and they may not have the same answer. I mean, you could probably think back to your biggest or one of your greatest regrets, right? That thing that you really wish that you could go back and fix, that moment that you wish you could relive, that decision that you wish you would not have made. Isn't it true that your biggest regret was first made possible by a series of unwise decisions? They may not have been wrong, they may not have been illegal, but you know that they weren't the smartest thing to do. They just weren't wise. And as you look back, that series of unwise decisions cleared the path. They paved the way for the moment that you have regretted ever since. Now, back in the first century, a guy named Paul wrote something in a letter to the Jesus followers that were in the city of Corinth that really speaks to the tension that we wrestle with between good and bad, wise and unwise. Here's what Paul had to say, and this is written down for us in Ephesians 5, verse 15 and 16. It says, "Be careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil." And clearly, not a whole lot has changed in a couple thousand years, right? It is human nature to flirt with disaster, to grab your blanket and get comfy next to the line between okay and not okay. It's just something that we naturally do, right? We are prone to live carelessly. And Paul is like, stop. Just stop doing it. Be careful how you live, not careless. Don't be careless. Evaluate every decision. Stop and ask yourself, is this decision wise? He doesn't say ask if it's right or wrong. He says, ask yourself if this decision is wise. Live wisely. And he explains further, making the most of every opportunity, right? He actually uses the Greek word for redeem here. He says to redeem the time, ransom the time, buy back the time. It makes me think. Do you ever wish that you could reclaim or redeem all the time that you wasted on bad decisions? Don't you wish that you could redeem or have back all the time that you had to spend making up for a bad decision? Living with the consequences, living with the penalty of a bad decision. I know that at times I definitely have. And it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a whole season of your life that you get back. It might be years of your life. Imagine being able to take that wasted time, that time that you regret, and apply it to something wise that you know that would benefit your life and the life of those around you. What if you could reinvest that time or that energy, or maybe there was money involved? What if you could reinvest that into productive activities that bring joy and peace and a God-honoring satisfaction to life for you and for others? Now, look, I'm not trying to bring up too much hurt from things that are in the past. I know that it can hurt at times to think about those things, to think about our regrets, but it's important to remember for this reason. I mean, I know that you can't undo the past. I know that you can't go back and relive a decision and make the wise decision this time around. But Paul is inviting us to invest our time wisely from this moment forward. From this day forward, from now forward, you are invited to make the most of, to redeem, to leverage your time, to invest your time in a way that actually propels you forward toward a preferred future. And just in case we needed another reason other than the memories of all the times we didn't take hold of the moments and make the wise decision, he tells us to do this because the days are evil. Now, what does he mean by that, right? What does that mean? Well, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but we do not live in a morally or ethically good or really even neutral culture, do we? I mean, think about it, right? Do advertisers, today's a big day for commercials, do advertisers encourage you to be careful and wise and self-controlled? Is that a thing that you hear a lot on commercials? Do salespeople tell you to, you know what, go home and think about it before you make a decision? I mean, Grayson just shared with us a couple weeks ago, right, about a window person trying to sell him windows, and it's like, if I leave, the deal goes with me. You got to buy it right now, right? I mean, that's probably more like what we're used to hearing. Now, this is one that I think about, and maybe you'll just be like, what is wrong with this person? But something I think about. Does the grocery store line up all the most commonly purchased items right up at the front of the store so that you don't have to walk past all that stuff that you don't really need but might be tempted to buy? Or do they put the milk all the way at the back of the store? Like, hey, I'm just saying, an observation, right? They know you're going in there for it, and they know that the floor-to-ceiling end cap of Oreos is right there. They know that I want them, and it's always the double-stuffed ones, too. So what this means is, this is on us, right? Paul is like, redeem the time. Be careful and redeem the time, because you're not going to get a whole lot of help from the culture. Culture is a gravitational pull. It pulls you in toward, get it now, don't wait. Take more, not less. It pulls you in toward go for what you want and worry about the necessities later. You can deal with that stuff some other time. And this is why the maturity question is so important, right? And we can ask ourselves this question from 3 points of inspection: your past, your present, and your future, right? So ask yourself the question this way: in light of my past experiences, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do? If you don't pay attention to what got you into trouble yesterday, you will be liable to get into the same trouble today. Your past predisposes you to specific temptations, specific things that may not be issues for other people, but they are issues for you. So in light of your past, not someone else's past, in light of your past experiences, what is the wise thing for you to do? Others may not have to worry about that. Might not be a problem for them. But based on your past, what is the wise thing for you to do? Financially, professionally, relationally, based on your past, what is the wise thing for you to do? Every decision, every invitation that is offered to you should be filtered through that question. And then in light of your current circumstances, what is the wise thing for you to do? You know, most of the things that I wish that I hadn't done, that I wish that I hadn't said, probably, usually, they happened when I reacted quickly in the moment to something that bothered me or frustrated me. Like that is just a reality of who I am as a person. And in those types of situations, if I wait, I'm usually okay. If I wait, then I'll probably be fine. When something frustrates me or makes me mad, if I wait to respond, I usually don't have to return later with an apology. But if I react harshly or rashly or just quickly in the moment, there's usually an I'm sorry in my future, and it's not me receiving it. I mean, there have been times where my wife will look at me and she'll be like, what just happened? Clearly that got to you. Clearly that got under your skin. What just happened? But then there have also been times where that same person, where my wife will look at me and she'll be like, how did that not make you mad? How did that not bother you? And usually in those situations, I'm like, it bothered me just fine. It absolutely bothered me, but I am just choosing not to respond right now in this moment because it would not be good if I did. Currently, at this particular moment, the wise thing for me to do is to just do nothing. That is the best thing that I can do right now. But it's important. Take the time to take into account what is going on right now. Are those circumstances likely to make you do something unwise? Again, your reaction may not be wrong necessarily. I mean, jumping right into a new relationship right after a breakup may not be wrong, but for you, would it be wise? And then, in light of your future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for you to do? Right? In the positions I've been in and throughout my life, having opportunities to meet a lot of different people, just all kinds of different people. You want to know what is probably one of the most difficult things to watch, to see happen in a person's life. And this is true of family members of mine. This is true of friends, people that I've gotten to know in all kinds of different jobs, ministries, whatever. One of the hardest things to watch is people making decisions that directly undermine what they want for their future. The things they say that they want, making decisions that just come right underneath and cut those things down. I know that none of us know the future, but I'm sure that you have an idea of what you would like the future to look like, don't you? Now, maybe you have resolved to do something new, to try something new this year. Maybe you are working toward a higher education because of specific opportunities you know that it will provide for you. Maybe you are in marriage counseling because you hope that it will help to improve your marriage. Maybe you're taking a financial class because you know that so that you can learn to manage money better instead of feeling like it's always managing you. Whatever it is, you probably have an idea of what the desired future is, at least the reason for why you started that thing. The question is, in light of those future hopes and dreams, the things that you say you want for your future, are the decisions that you are making today helping you get there, or are they derailing your efforts to get there? And maybe this won't apply to every person, but what about the future that you want for your kids? I mean, you want them to what? You want them to graduate high school, go to college, you want them to, become doctors, lawyers, whatever. You want them to be Jesus followers. Are your decisions today contributing to your desired future for them, or are they making it harder for you to get there? I mean, life is already hard enough on dreams, right? Anybody agree with that? I mean, I'm pretty sure we all know that. Just regular everyday life that comes at you is already hard enough on dreams. But we also have the potential to contribute to the demise of what we hope for. I know that I do, and I'm sure that you know that you do too. So the wisdom question, the maturity question is so important because nobody plans to undermine their own future, right? I'm pretty sure that people don't normally plan to do that. But asking this question and actually acting on this question will help you plan not to undermine your own future. But there is a catch. And here's the catch. Because you can't go back to a time when you didn't know this. Not now. Because I believe that if you ask yourself this question, the best options that are available to you will become very clear. In fact, I believe that they will become so clear that you will have to intentionally look away and make excuses if you are not going to go in that direction. And let me warn you, you will be tempted to do it. You will be tempted to make those excuses. But I'm not hurting anybody. I can handle it. Whatever the penalty is, I know that I can take it. Everybody else is doing it. God will forgive me, right? God will forgive me anyway. He says that he will do that. In fact, he probably won't even need to forgive me because what I'm thinking about doing isn't illegal. It's not technically even immoral. There's no law that says that I can't. And you will be tempted because this question isn't about stopping you from doing something wrong. It's about stopping you from doing something unwise. Because unwise decisions are a gateway to regret. They are. They just are. And this is why asking it is good. Asking the question is good. But you have to actually act on the question as well. If you ask yourself this question and then you lean into all the old excuses that you've always used to justify certain behaviors, then you will find yourself looking down the same road to regret that you have no doubt looked down many times before. Because excuses, excuses, they like you. They just put their arm around you and they walk you right up to the threshold of regret. Then they just abandon you there. So my suggestion would be, why don't you leave them first? Leave the excuses behind. If you're honest, right? If you're honest with yourself, they really have not served you all that well anyway, have they? So don't settle for pretty good. Don't settle for acceptable, legal, permissible. If you do, don't settle for everybody else does it. If you do, you will find yourself living dangerously close to regret. I mean, after all, hitting golf balls on my own property wasn't illegal, but it definitely was not wise. Now, as it turns out, putting stuff in the street, that actually is illegal. You can't do that. If hypothetically we had done that, we would have at least gotten a very stern lecture about doing that. But all kidding aside, right, we didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a rule about that. We just thought that it would be fun. So ask yourself, in light of my past experiences, not other people's, in light of my current circumstances, what I'm going through right now, and in light of my future hopes and dreams, the things that I say that I want for the future, what is the wise thing for me to do in this situation? And then act on the wise thing. You got to actually act on it. I mean, you're going to end up somewhere in life, right? You're going to end up somewhere. So why not end up somewhere on purpose? Wisdom paves the way to ending where you dream of, and way more importantly, where God's best is for you. Wisdom paves the way for getting there on purpose. Let me pray for us. God, I just thank you so much for allowing us to be here this morning and allowing me to be able to talk today. And God, thank you for your word. Thank you for the things that you had recorded and preserved for us over the years. Thank you for the truth that is in there. It's sometimes very simple and yet very difficult truth. We know that these things are simple enough for us to be able to understand and grasp, but they are difficult at times to do. God, we need your help. We've spent a lot of weeks now talking about how to make decisions better, a better way of making decisions. God, help us to actually act on these things. I know that you believe that if we act on these things, it will help. Otherwise, we wouldn't have left them here for us to read. God, again, we need your help to actually doing it. It's tough. Regular life is hard on dreams. Culture seems to be working against us many times. Help us, Lord. We love you. It is because of you that we are here. We just desire to follow you and to follow you better today than we did yesterday. It's in Jesus' name that I pray.